Again, ladies and gentlemen, we will be very shortly speaking with Jim Condit, who's going to tell us a lot about the voting machines and what is going on with these voting machines, what happened in Iowa in the straw poll, in the Iowa straw poll with Ron Paul. And Jim Condit thinks that that he was probably cheated out of some votes there, that he should have done more or done better than what he did. And, you know, it throws a question out there is, like, do you believe or do you trust the voting machines? Do you trust the do you trust these voting machines, the computerized electronic voting machines that they're going to have? And do we have them on? Okay. Okay. All right. As soon as they put them on hold, we're going to go to them because we don't want to waste any more time. Here we go. Jim, can you hear me? Who's talking to someone else? The guest is talking to someone else? Okay. All right. Okay. So anyhow, just let me know what you think of Ron Paul, and if you think he's going to make it, and are you going to vote for Ron Paul, or you know, probably some of the Democrats out there may not like that we are trying to push Ron Paul here. We're not really trying to push anyone here. We just think that the man has integrity, and we think that the man from the beginning, he opposed the war. He exposed what the war was all about from the beginning, not like everybody else who played politics with with our lives and with our children's lives and with our children's future. And you can read his articles. He has a weekly article. You can go on his website, Ron Paul's website, and you will see what it's all about, and you will learn more about who Ron Paul is. But if we are going to have anyone on who will be probably the best for this country, it would be Ron Paul. He's probably the best for the country. But anyhow, Jim Condit, ladies and gentlemen, he was in Iowa this past weekend where they had the Iowa straw poll, and we're going to find out more about this practice, which we probably don't have that in Louisiana. I know there will be one in Texas where the Republicans will basically, this is like more of a caucus thing that it's kind of, you know, where candidates will be testing the waters and see. But it has been historically the winners, like for instance, George Bush won the Iowa straw poll. So let's see, we do have Jim with us now. Jim, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you. Jim, you were in Iowa this past weekend. Can you tell us what exactly the Iowa straw poll and what happened there?
Yeah, the Iowa straw poll is the first big contest of the presidential election. It became that way in 1987 when Pat Robertson hired an organizer named Marlene Elwell, who got so many supporters there for him that he beat Vice President Bush and Bob Dole. And so it got national attention since then. And basically, what had happened this week is it was the first test. Now, we were there as Citizens for a Fair Vote Count in order to, and with a group that kind of came into existence called Vote in Sunshine. We were there to try to make sure that the votes were counted in the open. What happened? The Iowa GOP. They insisted, and they announced in advance, and they insisted on maintaining Diebold computers. And this was Diebold has been discredited many times by university level studies, including recently, 2 weeks ago, July 28th, about almost 3 weeks ago now. On July 28th, a study was released by the University of California that was paid for by the California Secretary of State, and they said the Diebold computers were easily rigged, easily hacked, and not reliable for counting votes. So we, as a group, as Citizens for a Fair Vote Count, we want to get a fair count for everybody. But in real time in this year, it's obvious to most people watching that the 5 TV networks and the Republican Party is most persecuting Ron Paul, the congressman from Texas, who is against the attack on Iraq, is against an attack on Iran, and not is for doing away with the parts of the Patriot Act that encroach on the Constitution, etc. So we were most interested to see that he got a fair count, and of course we wanted everybody to get a fair count. So what happened is that the Republican Party adamantly insisted on staying with these Diebold computers, and so we had a fellow by the name of, thankfully, a fellow by the name of Bob Schultz, who was with We the People Foundation, came in and filed a federal suit against the Iowa GOP, etc. And the suit is actually a suit that is aimed at getting rid of all these computer systems that hide the votes from the people. Because what they did in Iowa, hiding the votes from the people and just coming out and announcing a result at the end, that's what they do in 49 states and half of New Hampshire. So we've reached the point where in 49 of our states and half of New Hampshire, the ballots are taken from the people within a few minutes after they mark them. They're fed into a machine or something like that where they're never seen again. And then those running the election come out and announce the totals, and we're supposed to take it on blind faith. So that's what happened in Iowa. And, of course, the bigger issue is what's going to happen in the rest of this presidential campaign.
Okay. Now, in Iowa, the county auditor and commissioner of elections, I don't know if you are aware of this one, Mary Mosiman.
Yes.
She sits on the Mitt Romney's campaign. She's one of like the big wigs on his campaign.
Yes, that came out when we were up there, and she has been on there since April 17th, and she was in charge of overseeing the computers. And that's why what we said in the federal suit, and this goes for all elections in the United States, we want there to be a clear plastic box. The voters each put their ballot in the clear plastic box, and then the votes are counted in front of everybody right there on the spot at every precinct in the United States. Neighbors are pointed. They count the votes in front of all the factions, everybody watching on. Then you know for sure. You know for sure that you have an honest count. The way they did it in Iowa, they take the ballots away from the people, and then you have to trust whatever count they say. But the evidence or the ballots was never allowed to be seen by the people, the press, the candidates. Now,
Jim, let me ask you about this, because we lost a little bit of time, so I want to try to squeeze as much as we can in here.
Yes.
They were expecting 45. I want you to go with the numbers with me here for a second. They were expecting 45,000 to show up. They sold 26,000 tickets, but yet there were only like there's like 12,000 votes that we can't even find. What's the story on that?
Well, that has been traditional. That is not that unusual at this event. People buy tickets and don't show up, so they've always sold more tickets than they had votes.
But historically, like for instance, when George Bush won, about 26,000 purchased tickets, but then we had about 22,000 votes. Here we're talking about 50%. Half of those who purchased tickets did not vote, which historically never happened.
I thought they said there were 38,000 tickets bought in '99. I'm not so sure that is that great of a discrepancy. They always had more tickets bought, but the problem is more that we had clickers at the entrances. Our Vote in Sunshine auditors, we had little hand clickers at the exit, and we determined that about 14,000 people voted. They eventually, who came in and out of the voting buildings with their purple thumb, and so they announced that like 14,500 or 600 voted.
Okay.
So that was right. What we don't know is what the mix there was, and of course this is the critical thing for the future elections. Just an example, in this year, Ron Paul's been winning, the congressman from Texas has been winning all these online polls by fabulous amounts, and that's why in this case we feel it's necessary that they count the votes in the open, that they not hide them, because the procedure they used is it's Diebold machines, and as I say, Diebold was decertified, that means made illegal to use in the state of California on 2 weeks before this event took place. The Diebold machines, you vote on a paper ballot, you feed it into the machine like you're making a deposit at an ATM, and then that you never see the ballot again. And they claim they count these. Actually, what they do when the polls close, they push a few buttons and a receipt comes out that has each candidate's name and allegedly how many votes they got, and then we're supposed to take that on blind faith. They add those receipts up from the various machines, and that's what they announce. So that's the problem with the system. Now, you can see how different that is from the way this country did it in the first 180 years of our existence, where we kept the ballots in public view all day and counted them right at the end of the day at each neighborhood precinct. And that's what should have been done here. That's what should be done in the country. And the lawsuit that's filed goes on, and that people can view that lawsuit at We the People Foundation. I'm going to get for you. I'll get it for you as we go along. If it's com or org, but it's We the People Foundation. If you put that in the,
it's either .org
well, you'll
or
see, you'll see it for the lawsuit. It's .org. Yeah, it's .org.
Okay.
WeThePeopleFoundation.org is where you can read all about the lawsuit that was filed, and it's a very excellent thing. On my website, VoteFraud.org, then you can look at the top link says the Vote Fraud Syndicate versus Ron Paul, and you can there read at that link all the articles that we've put up before and after this straw poll and about the battles to come, because we're trying to prevent them from doing to Ron Paul or anybody else what they did to Pat Buchanan in the 1990s. There was the same type of thing happened. It's a straw poll. You couldn't see the results. They went and locked doors for 2 hours and came out and announced the results, which turned out in favor of what the party would have wanted, despite the cheering going the opposite direction. In 2007, they again did the same thing and came out and announced the result. In 1996, we have absolute proof that Pat Buchanan was cheated at the Iowa caucus in Dubuque County. And that article is up on our website, or you can search it on Google. It's called A House Without Doors, and that explains how, by the grace of God, we caught the vote fraud against Pat Buchanan in Dubuque County in 1996. And so the Iowa caucuses, as opposed to the straw poll, is coming up in about 6 months. And we are hoping that the Ron Paul campaign will have eyes and ears in all 99 counties in Iowa, because that would then allow us to know what the count was at that event. We now do not know what the count was at the straw poll. Okay. We're just taking on blind faith that what they told us was the right account.
Jim, now, the Constitution that gave us the right to vote also gave us the right to know what happened with our vote after we voted, correct?
Yes, and the Supreme Court has ruled that way twice in the last 100 years, in 1964 and 1915.
That we have the right to know what happened to our vote and how it was counted.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the Ron Paul campaign, actually, they're not too upset at what happened in Iowa, and as one of his campaign spokesmen, Jesse Benton, he said last night or the night before, he said that everything that took place in Iowa took place pretty much in the open, so they're satisfied. Do you see a problem there in the Ron Paul campaign itself?
Yeah, I put out a screaming email called "How Stupid is Jesse Benton, Ron Paul campaign spokesman?" When he says everything was done in the open, nothing was done in the open. I mean, the ballots are the evidence. They hid the ballots from us behind police guard. People have to understand, though, why this is so critical. This is not just the Iowa straw poll. This is all 49 states and one half of New Hampshire. Only one half of New Hampshire, 10 counties there do it right.
Okay.
So this is in every election. See, we have these people that are in office, whether they be Bill Clinton, George Bush, or the Congress. They're taking us to war in the Middle East, attacking Iraq and killing, what, is it over 1 million people there now, or killing all kinds of people in the name of Americans. They are talking about going to war against Iran. They've brought in these police state measures where Bush just signed something the other day that they can snoop in the email or on the phone calls of any American without a warrant. Well, this is Nazi communist stuff, And all this is being done because these are supposedly elected officials. What we're saying is, since 1988, we don't know who's won any of these elections. Basically, you have a situation where from 1973 to 1978, all of the counties, there's 3,140 counties or so in the United States. Between 1973 and 1978, the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee persuaded, strong-armed, gave incentives, whatever. They put all these counties together because they control one of the other parties or both control all the counties. They put them together with 4 super New World Order mysterious mega corporations that have computers to count votes. The names of those companies now are Diebold, ES&S, or Election System and Services. Third company is Hart. The fourth company is Sequoia. Those 4 companies count the votes in like 3,100 of our counties. They count 96% of the vote in the United States. So what you have is an unholy alliance between the Republican National Committee, the Democratic National Committee, that got all the counties to adopt one of these 4 companies. And then we got the 5 TV networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and Fox, and AP Wire, protecting these companies and not really telling the people
Jim,
what's happening.
Jim, hold on a second. We're going to talk about the media in a second, but we're going to go to the phones.
Okay.
We have...
One call on hold. To reconnect, press...
let's go to James in California. Go ahead, James.
Hi, Dr. Tillawi. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Thank you for taking my call there. And I just wanted to say I was just listening to Jim Condit and what he was saying on the internet here, and I completely agree with him with what he's saying about the war and how it's basically going to go to Iran next, and it's all for Israel. I mean, if you read Pat Buchanan's Who's War article, you can Google that online, and the agenda from that piece he wrote several years ago pretty much has what's going on. The concern is, along with this vote situation, I was suspicious when I heard about the delay. I'd read an AP piece that moved initially, and there was a delay in the vote. And that's when I started getting pretty suspicious. So I'm really interested in what he has to say here. Also, for anybody who's interested in what Ron Paul's written through his website, you can do a search for his neocon piece. That never got any coverage. It was a speech he delivered on the floor of the House. And I've been in touch with his foreign relations guy, Daniel McAdams. And he, basically is an American patriot, and they had dinner with Jim Bamford, had written a pretext for war book, which also addressed the war for Israel agenda in the Middle East. And I just think that now what's going on, let me close with this, the Mearsheimer Walt book that's coming out on September 4th. What's incredible here is I've been in touch with the executive producer's office for 60 Minutes, CBS 60 Minutes, and they're refusing to cover it. And I got an email back from them just yesterday, or earlier this week, saying that they're not going to do a segment on this Mearsheimer Walt book about the pro-Israel lobby and how it pushed us into Iraq and now is gearing us up to attack Iran before Bush leaves office. That's just outrageous.
Well,
Jim, I think we should. I've got that on the record now via email, and I think we should get a campaign to really put pressure and take this media back from Israel.
Well, Jim, I'm sure you're also aware that their event was canceled at the Chicago Council for Global Affairs.
Exactly, Hesham. If I can just put one website out there, I don't agree with everything that's at that website with regard to 9/11. I think that 9/11 happened because of U.S. support for Israel and the burning hatred as a result of that. But the website is actually titled WhatReallyHappened.com, and you can see some entries that are posted there that talk about that banning, and that's outrageous too. For anybody like Professor Chomsky, who basically tries to downplay the power and influence of the pro-Israel Jewish lobby in America. Take a look at what happened with that event, in Chicago. Here they have a prearranged speaking event on September 27th when their book's released on September 4th, and they have it all set, and sure enough, the ADL, the civilian spy arm of the Mossad in the U.S., basically, was spying on the anti-Zionist Jew, Jeff Blankfort, they want to put Abe Foxman up there to counter what Merchant Wolf.
Well, my problem, Jim, with them putting Abe Foxman is these people are scientists, they are professors, they have done the research. You know, they're not coming with a political agenda, and this guy is coming with a political agenda. So, I mean, you're discussing apples and oranges here. This is not a political research that they have done. This was a scientific research. These people found actually their foundings, and that's what they're going to be discussing is what they found.
Exactly, and let me just make this one point along that line. Hesham, what about Michael Oren, which Walton Mersheimer addressed in their letter to the Chicago Council, on Foreign Affairs or Global Affairs? It basically said that here you had Michael Oren, who's an Israeli propagandist. He was born in New Jersey, and he went to Israel, and he's been covering up the USS Liberty attack, and here he is speaking earlier this year, I believe, and he didn't have anybody there to counter his point.
Right,
why are they doing this with Walton Mersheimer?
Exactly. Jim, appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Thanks. Jim.
Listen, the caller's hitting on the twofold problem we face. One is the censorship of the big TV networks, and doesn't let the American people hear what we need to hear because they're under this pro-Israeli lobby. And anybody that doesn't know that, really, I don't know what to say about them at this point if they don't know that. And these are the same people who are not telling the people what is happening with stealing their vote. Because if we could get an honest vote, I believe that this whole neocon agenda would start to crumble and be gone in 2 or 4 years. But that is the reason that the 5 big TV networks protect these 4 computer companies who work together with the Republican and National Committee, and that is how if the news media propaganda doesn't work, then they can use computer vote fraud to defeat someone like Pat Buchanan, Ron Paul, or any good congressman.
Now, when you were there, and I heard you said that when they announced that Mitt Romney actually came in first, that the majority were not cheering that decision?
Well, at the after event. Now, let me make clear though. We want to make sure we're accurate. The Mitt Romney did seem to have the most people there. He bought 4,000 tickets. Everybody had T-shirts. He bussed them in, and so it is possible that he won. What we're questioning is we suspect that Dr. Paul may have come in second, and they took his vote and divided it over Romney, Huckabee, and Brownback, all neocons. And if somebody says, well, hey, how can you say that? I say, how can they say what they said? They came out hiding the ballots from us, and they make an assertion that this is the result. So I can make an assertion that we wonder if this other thing is the result. What the New World Order media needed was to have Dr. Ron Paul finish low enough that they could pretend like he was not a serious candidate.
Okay. Now, let's go with the media. You mentioned something that the media is not doing their job in covering what is happening here. And by the way, did you hear about Tommy Thompson leaving, and his brother has endorsed Ron Paul?
Tommy Thompson's brother endorsed? No. Yeah. I heard that he dropped out, and that shows the power of the Iowa caucus.
Yeah, he dropped out, and his brother right away, his brother announced that he's endorsing Ron Paul. Incredible.
Well, the point is, if we could get some honest coverage, but especially if we could get an honest vote count, I think that Ron Paul would do very well or even win this whole
What about
thing.
the delay? Jim mentioned the delay. James mentioned the delay.
Yeah. They were supposed to announce the results at 7 o'clock. They didn't announce it until 8:15.
Historically, is that never happened before?
No, it did happen when they were messing with the vote in the Buchanan year. See, in 1995, Buchanan had wild cheering, and when Bob Dole spoke, there was no booing, but there was just silence for 15 minutes. And Phil Graham, the senator from Texas, who had no charisma and was kind of a neocon, wishy-washy, he got polite applause and some good applause. But Buchanan, the place came down. So we believe that was a vote counted totally in the dark. They went in a locked room for 2 hours with only Dole and Graham supporters from the Iowa GOP, and then they came out 2 hours later and said, we have a tie between Dole and Graham at 2,501 to 2,501, and Buchanan came in second with 1,905. Now, the only thing we can guess is that neither the Dole people nor the Graham people would give way to be in second place once they decided to cheat Buchanan, and then they said they had a tie and that Buchanan came in second. Robert Novak on CNN the next morning suggested that the results had been cooked because it's just very unlikely that out of 12,000 votes cast in 1995 at this Iowa straw poll that you would have an exact tie between two of the candidates for first of 2,501 and 2,501. But again, you get back to the same thing, Dr. Tillawi. Count the ballots in the open. Don't hide the ballots and lock them like we're in some kind of a Stalinist dictatorship. Count them in the open. Then we don't have to be guessing what the results were. But this was when they had to stick it to Buchanan. In my opinion, there was this delay because they tried to figure out what they could get away with. And I think here they were trying to figure out what they could get away with by suppressing Ron Paul's vote, and that took them 2 hours and 15 minutes after the event, an hour and 15 minutes more than they said to come out with the results.
Now let's talk about the Republican candidate who might be getting to the convention and actually getting the nominations. Do you think Mitt Romney, are they preparing Mitt Romney to be the next president of the United States, do you think?
No, I think they're preparing Hillary in the overall, but for the Republicans...
Well, I mean for the Republicans.
Yeah, for the Republicans, the nominee, they're going to test the waters, Romney, Giuliani, and Fred Thompson. McCain has pretty much fallen. But these guys are all holograms. They wouldn't even have any support if it wasn't for the media pumping them all day long and ignoring all the other candidates. What will happen is whoever they choose on, is if we do not get the computer vote counts out of the way, get back to hand counts, New Hampshire will be somewhat a fair vote because half the state's counted by hand. So Ron Paul might have a chance there. The Iowa caucuses, if they're still counting it in the open, he has a chance. But once you get past New Hampshire to Super Tuesday, all of those, and they're rushing these primaries up further and further because they don't want the groundswell of the masses against what they're pulling off in this country to have any time to gain momentum. So they're moving these things up to February and even January. But on Super Tuesday in February, when they get to all those states, then the computers will kick in, and you'll find out that whoever they picked, whether it be Romney or Giuliani or Thompson, and for the Democrats, whether it be Hillary or Obama or so forth, you'll find that the computers will come out showing tremendous landslides in all likelihood for the people that they pick. This happened in 1995 when Buchanan was running against Dole. Buchanan won Louisiana, Alaska. He was cheated in the Iowa caucus, which we have proved absolutely in the article A House Without Doors, if you want to see how Buchanan was cheated by the Republican Party and the 5 TV networks in Dubuque, Iowa. That's the article A House Without Doors. He came in second there, supposedly, but we think he was cheated. And then in New Hampshire, he came in first. Those were the first 4 contests, and they were all out in the open. Then we hit more or less. Then we hit the Super Tuesday, and the computers kicked in, and Bob Dole won 28 straight states by landslides with the computers. Then in Missouri, 28 states later, there was another caucus where you could actually see what was happening, and Buchanan won. So that means even after 28 supposed landslides for Dole by these phony computer counts, when you got back to a count you could check, Buchanan won. That's just unheard of in normal American politics. If a person really is winning 28 landslides, by the time the 29th state comes around, then the other guy has no support, and they're all backing the guy that they voted for in the landslide. So this is the same this year. And this is why what the Paul paid staff is doing now is so detrimental, is they now have a chance to say, look, they hid the ballots in the Iowa straw poll. They're planning to hide the ballots at Super Tuesday in all the states across the United States. We protest. They should be filing lawsuits. Instead, they're saying, "Oh, I think everything kind of came out okay."
Jim.
Yeah.
Can you explain exactly? Because I'm sure some people in other states who don't have these straw polls. What is the Iowa straw poll, and why is it so important for the presidential election?
Well, the Iowa straw poll is basically a contest that was run by the Republican Party up until 1999 when they started to have the county auditor and the state auditor and the Diebold machines that this year brought in. So now it's kind of a hybrid event. It's part state and it's part Republican Party. And it became important just because, as I said, in 1987, when Pat Robertson and Marlene Elwell organized all the pro-life Catholics, the evangelicals, and Robertson beat the sitting vice president, Bush, and Dole in the 1987 straw poll. And after that, in 1995, 1999, and this year, just the other times there was an incumbent Republican president, there was no straw poll. This has just taken on a big aura, and the media comes and covers it. 250 media were there. 250 media came to Iowa to cover this straw poll. C-SPAN, Fox News, ABC, Laura Ingraham, the talk show host, was the host.
Now,
so
it
just became important after that 1987 deal, and it became the most important straw poll in the nation, and just because of what happened in Robertson beating Bush and getting so many people to it in 1987.
So any of these media outlets that showed up in Iowa questioned anything that has anything to do with this poll?
Well, on their websites, the night of the straw poll, on Des Moines Register and New York Times and Herald Tribune that goes into Europe, and Taiwan was something. On the websites the night before, they all talked about the delay, the glitches in the computers, our lawsuit that we said that the computers were unreliable, the University of California study out and saying these Diebold machines were unreliable. That was on the websites the night before, and we've preserved all of those stories, and 4 of them are at We the People Foundation.org. You can see them in that article that Bob Schultz wrote about the lawsuit. But by the next morning, by the time it hit the papers, the editors had scrubbed all that. So if you look at the Des Moines Register the next morning, you'd think everything just went smooth, no problem, no machine problem, no delay. It gives the people the impression that everything was clearly Romney was the smooth winner in the whole thing. And this is, of course, why they have censors in the United States of America go over every major newspaper and the newscast. They take out things that are not, they do not want the public to hear. And, of course, this is exactly what the organized Jewish lobby did when they took over Russia in 1917, and it's exactly what they're doing now. I would say that your caller before was correct, that 99% or more of the censorship of what Americans should hear is coming from the Jewish lobby. And they got their people placed clearly at the New York Times, all the 5 big TV networks. These are all Zionist Jewish-run entities. And that is why, since Dr. Ron Paul says cut off all foreign aid, which is the Constitution would require, cut off all foreign aid, and actually the Israeli lobby only hears cut off Israel's foreign aid, and that's why they will oppose Dr. Paul hook, line, and sinker.
So, Jim, why aren't they, I mean, he's doing pretty good, Ron Paul. Why aren't they interfering with his campaign?
Well, he's really not. I mean, he's only winning on the online straw poll. He hasn't, this was the first contest that showed strength, and they succeeded in having come in 5th. And I believe if we had an open count, he would have come in much better. And again, the surprising thing is that the campaign itself is not standing with us and joining the federal suit, demanding open counts. They are instead saying everything is okay. So that is a war that's breaking out on the internet. But Ron Paul is doing well in the online, where people that are activists, they know what's happening. But when I've gone to Iowa, if I ask the average person that I rent the car from or that I go to the stop to get gas from, have you ever heard of Ron Paul? They always say no. Have you heard of Hillary? Yes. Have you heard of Obama? Yes. Have you heard of Romney? Maybe. In other words, the 80% of the American people are casual news viewers. And these people have not even heard of Ron Paul because the media has been suppressing him out. We've proposed to the Ron Paul campaign that they take 300,000 of their 3 million they got on hand and put ads on for him in every major radio market in the country on the same stations where Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity appear, and say the 5 TV networks and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity are censoring out our campaign. Go to ronpaul2008.com and see what the media is hiding from you. Have Dr. Paul say something. That's what should be done so they can break through at least to the...
So why aren't they doing it?
I have no idea. And I'm about to put out a thing on the internet to all the Ron Paul groups telling them that the Ron Paul campaign is not doing anything to defend itself against this suppression by the five.
But Jim, I mean, do we expect that Ron will get the nominations? Of course not.
Well, I would say that if he got a fair count and fair coverage, he might, because he's doing well wherever he is got some exposure.
Right, but they will never give him that exposure. Jim, we only have like a couple of minutes left. Give me what is your website?
Our website is votefraud.org. That's VOTEFRAUD.org. If people are not on the internet, our address is Citizens for a Fair Vote Count, P.O. Box 11339, Cincinnati, Ohio 45211.
Jim, thank you for the time you made for us. I know you're a busy man. Appreciate you coming on.
If I could say one more thing
Sure,
quick.
go ahead.
This is the first year that we have a chance to knock over the credibility of the New York networks, the ABC, CBS, and so forth, because the internet is really strong, and we can put on our own TV shows like you do. We can have conference calls. So if enough people rose up, and we got enough of this going on with cell phones and everything, I think we would have a chance this year for the first time to defeat the New York media and overcome it by millions of people talking to each other on the internet, but that's only if we can make it known to people that we have this completely hide the ballots, computerized counting system that is warping the future of our country by these false computerized counts.
Very good, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the website is votefraud.org. Votefraud.org. And we apologize for all the people who were on hold. We were having problems with the phone system, so that's why if we would have went to another caller, would have lost the guest. So hopefully by next week we will have that problem taken care of, because we do have like a separate line for the guest, but unfortunately it was not working, and we did not have time to even see what was the problem with it. But we, like we say, ladies and gentlemen, we bring you the news where the mainstream media keeps away from you. Now, we're not saying that something happened in Iowa, but that's what and of course it's www.votefraud.org. They think something happened in Iowa. Now, the potential I have seen, and we have done programs here where we brought guests to talk about the voting machines, where there is a potential of the machines being misused, and but anyhow, that was Jim Condit Jr. with Vote Fraud, and I'm sure we hope that we opened your eyes. We'll see you next Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Tuesday, 7:30. Good night. See you then.